Why do the British treat war like a very serious job wrapped in a very strange joke? Other armies charge, shout, or pray. The British seem to pause for a cup of tea, adjust their tie, make a dry remark, and only then start shooting. From officers carrying umbrellas into battle, to soldiers dribbling footballs across no man's land, to commandos storming beaches with bagpipes wailing. The question nags, what on earth is going on here? The answer isn't that the British don't take war seriously. It's almost the opposite. Their eccentric habits under fire grew out of a very specific mix of class, culture, empire, and trauma, a way of surviving the unbearable by pretending it's all slightly ridiculous. To see where it comes from, you have to go back to the officers' mess and the Victorian schoolyard. 4 generations, Britain's officer corps was drawn from the same narrow pipeline. Boys sent to elite boarding schools, taught on cold playing fields that you never complain. Never show fear, never talk too much about feelings. Pain was to be met with a shrug and a joke. Terror with understatement. That stiff upper lip wasn't naturally British. It was drilled in, beaten in, turned into a badge of class. When those same men put on uniforms, they carried the habit with them. One way to prove you belonged to the club was to behave as if nothing, not even artillery, could ruffle you. Hence the colonel strolling toward the front with an umbrella, or the young lieutenant insisting on shaving every morning in a shell-smashed trench. Madness to an outsider. To them, a performance of control. Class also fed a second habit, turning everything into a game. The same empire that conquered a quarter of the globe also produced a culture where rugby, cricket, and football were treated almost as religions. Officers were taught that sport built character. The man who could take a hit on the pitch without flinching could take a bullet without breaking. So when the whistle blew for an attack, cricket metaphors shouted over machine gun chatter. But inside that absurdity was a desperate logic. If you can pretend this is still a game, you don't have to admit you're walking through hell. Then there is the tea. The British habit of brewing up in shell holes, on tank decks, under mortar fire, isn't just a national quirk, it's a ritual stitched into their military DNA. Tea means routine, and routine means the world is still under control. Boil water, measure leaves, pass mugs along the trench, in those small, precise actions. Men who have no say over life or death reclaim a tiny island of choice. Outsiders saw lunacy. How can they think of tea at a time like this? Insiders saw defiance. As long as the kettle boils, we are not beaten. Humor might be the strangest habit of all. British troops developed a strain of gallows which so dark it shocked even their allies. Trenches in 1915 echoed with jokes about Austrian postcards for shells and going for a stroll when ordered over the top. In World War II, bomber crews painted cartoons on aircraft named things like Just Jane or Sorry, Wrong Address, a wink at their odds of coming home. That humor wasn't disrespect, it was armor. If you can laugh at something, even bitterly, it can't quite own you. So why do these habits look especially British? Partly because Britain had time to turn them into tradition. As an island power, the country fought wars in almost every decade of the 19th and 20th centuries. Regiments developed fiercely guarded quirks that became a kind of psychological armor. Do something odd once in battle and it's a story. Do it every campaign for a century and it becomes the way we do things. There's also an island psychology at work, the sense of being the small, stubborn nation holding out. In both world wars, British culture leaned hard on the image of the unflappable underdog. Standing on a cliff saying, well, this is a bit of a nuisance, as the continent burned. Eccentric behavior fed that myth and fed off it. If you could make the world believe you were more amused than afraid, maybe you could make yourself believe it too. Of course, the stories we tell are edited. We remember the officer with the umbrella, not the thousands who crawled silently through mud in perfectly ordinary terror. We retell the tale of commandos playing bagpipes. Less often the clerk who spent the blitz filing forms in a basement, just as scared and just as necessary. Eccentricity makes a good anecdote. Quiet professionalism and raw fear do not. Still, those anecdotes matter because they reveal how a particular culture chose to face the same horror every soldier meets. The British answer was, with a straight face, an odd accessory, and a joke so dry it might as well be tinder. Underneath the quirks lay very normal human beings trying not to break. What looks like eccentricity is often just fear, duty, and culture colliding and coming out, somehow with a teapot and an umbrella. So the next time you see an old photo of a British soldier grinning under a tin helmet, ask yourself what he was holding back behind that smile, and how much stranger war might feel without those little rituals of deliberate oddness. Thanks for watching. If you found this interesting, consider liking and subscribing for more stories like this.